Gilg Jew, Gilg J as Gilg Nerach.
Sé Claare Gael viscoil toya cartnish is bewaliam usaltica. My name is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Have a tale of old Bobby Bob.
And this bilingual programme is called Claare Gael. Bilingual with part of it in the English language, as de hengach leis pert sa Gilg, and bilingual with part of it in the Manx Gaelic. Chinian Amera, Shem de Geuree, the mother tongue of Ellan Banning, the Isle of Man. As Mavanach dut Rish. The 18th of November will be Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, and perhaps you'd expect me to give a translation of that, an approximation of what it might mean in English, but the background of it, as given by different authorities, brings, well, some doubt, a lack of clarity. Sometimes it's contradictory. On Skiel Jacob as Wilhelm Grimm, ta Hans dit by Bolfoder Schul, de chor Jiri Refusa, Elsa Achtel. Gouds dan as a voer, as Elsa as Hans scoilgenair, dan voer ek ginst Elsa, de golschist, de Giele Luner en son wijn Vollag sa teller. Next Saturday, the 22nd of November, comes the Lord Giovanni Kissack's collection of poems, A Suggestion of Wrens. Well, in the meantime, here's one of Annie's songs, sung by Ruth Keggin. Tauas Gees Jachrish, Radio Banning, Stasiwn en Aswn, Bisguller Skeliamach by Dúlish, Ellen Banning.
As a keen as a clan spare fallen as gacharu foot a kagan and I verkicken giri and spoke ye gorum as mish malamakan a try. Oh, the rami Fost my yelia puach, the rayas the climb a git a try. Segenik tash the screw manam as a hilach max lamp say rishavai. Vakams and feinit sho arach sa vijams, be blint en roman sost en liauwer as drie. Skari a kam I vei mahalian, o kam I sa genektans as machri. Be the hosma village, ni mista lawan, ni mista gaten, Ellen Tamalianu, Banas Red the Halen, Shisha the Homramin. Be the hosma village, ni mista lawan, ni mista gaten, Ellen Tamalianu, Banas Red the Halen, Shisha the Homramin. Da klaka ele dort, venin yam na foot kazagach. Mr. Lawanee, Mr. Haven, Kuznak Nazak Man, Lega Gassani, Karat the Hully Grace. Kuznak Nasa, Lega Gassa, Hirakni, Mr. Lawanee, Mr. Haven, Kuznak Nazak Man, Lega Gassani, Karat the Hully Grace. Dark Lacan, Yartis, Sword, Verniam, the Foot Cassagach, Reader, all Lagan, Banachtot, Omochrimisto. Dark Lacan, Yartis, Sword, Verniam, the Foot Cassagach, Reader, all Lagan, Banachtot, Omochrimisto.
The harp of Rachel Hare and the voice of Ruth Keggin with Annie Kissack's song Mish as a Keen, and the song collected by Annie's great mentor and inspiration Mona Douglas, Ren na Ní. Archibald Crigeen was a stonemason from Colby, and he was coroner of Rushen. In 1835 there came a dictionary of the Manx language with the corresponding words or explanations in English, interspersed with many Gaelic proverbs. The parts of speech, the genders, and the accents of the Manx words are carefully marked, with some etymological observations never before published, by Archibald Crigeen, Arbury, Isle of Man. Bailium de lorach shiwulju les glerigen, etc. Well, this is from St. Paul's first epistle to the Corinthians, I would that ye all spake with tongues. And this book, of which I've just said the title page, that's all the title on it, it was printed and published for the author, it says, by J. Quiggin, North Quay, but after that Douglas printer and publisher it adds, intriguingly I think, Whitaker, Treacher and Arnott, London, and Evans, Chegwin and Hall, Liverpool. I'm not quite clear on how the Liverpool and London publishers and printers came into it. Chawds de Ailsa achtal lína pudjul les lún, tí gin begirten teller, as tí fagen spy, deg nabrian seidstiach ons mullache teller. Tí smunnion, de ginnach hans pussy, as der au pertje ruggage dau, as de nesige pertje de bij moer de loer de bij currachieske teller de hiele per de luner en son, fuddy de ginnach spy tujum shiserach as maraway. Eg lid an ai, tí sai shees as dobber an de try. Tan benastje, moir Elsa, cor in a veil sheeskas a teller, de een of his junwer Elsa achtel, na belly chit leshen lune. Tan in a veil gol shees, as tí braiach an or tí Kenya. Treta Elsa sailsich a mach an Alec, tan in a veil grey, de wel Elsa achtel de jaru, as eist de is sai shees Mary as dobber an yes. Leis weg de lune chit forst en maasje cor a gilje dredgus a teller. Tashin gol as te clash and skiel Elsa. Te grede wel Elsa achtel de jaru, as te gol toiach nisser Kenya erurd. Now this is a song from Cornwall written by Mike O'Connor for the Cornwall Songwriters presentation about the life of the tin miners and some of the folklore associated with their way of life and industry. It's called The Cry of Tin.
Hear me burning, hear me flowing, hear me turning, hear me glowing. Listen as all worlds begin.
Listen to the cry of tin.
Hear me sleeping, hear me dreaming, hear me keeping, hear me gleaming. Listen all who would me win.
Listen to the cry of tin.
Hear me drilling, hear me wiring, hear me felling, hear me firing. Listen as the load comes in.
Listen to the cry of tin.
Hear me calling, hear me crying, hear me falling, hear me dying. Listen for the tremors din.
Listen to the cry of tin.
Hear me chaffing, hear me joking, hear me laughing, smelting, smoking. Listen as the doubles spin.
Listen to the cry of tin.
Hear me singing, hear me tolling, hear me ringing,
You can hear the cry of tin.
Hear me shouting, hear me breathing.
Hear me doubting, hear me grieving.
Hear me saying, hear me pleading.
Hear me praying, hear me bleeding.
Listen all who would me win. Listen to the cry of tin.
Mike O'Connor and other members of the Cornwall Songwriters, taking verses of Mike's song, which gave its title to the presentation, The Cry of Tin. And we heard Mike O'Connor's concertina there with it as well. Lloris an tre seo ta pes aglach or a hús na Grecian, mar so hug a manstje, Elsa, a ven de gol shiscus a teller. A slug dan vanastje clashen an orson dobber an wegen truer jou, tish grei de bel Elsa achtel de jaru, as tish dobber an yes. Lurt tamelt door de wanstje de gin eschen gol shiscus a teller, as fedden maagnet an borre. Ach, leschen airtis gedden. Te grei de wel Elsa achtel de jaro tred te clashen en skeel, as te Gael ar meru ons co as Kenia's dobber an earth. As the jaro Lloris an tre seo te hans heen smunnion de bear leschen gol shies te gedden maag, nuvis tachert. Tre te fedden ad ons shen as ul you dobber an earth, tan skeel gedden guller inch desen. As te smunnion, na wel kiel share yeri sa lucht taiege, as de wel Elsa de jaru vierachtel. Maar so te grei, de liesage chit de vei pusht. Tad ul you gul soes gus en chamerish, as de banish hanses Elsa na kummeltje lirach. In compiling this dictionary with its proverbs and extensive notes on grammar, as well as showing where the accents fall on the words, Archibald Cregeen must have been making notes for many years, because it all had to be fitted in with his other duties as a stonemason and in his official capacity as coroner of Rushen. John Kelly had compiled a dictionary earlier, based perhaps on the manuscripts of the translation of the books of the Bible into Manx from the various members of the clergy, because many of his entries don't reflect the spellings used in the final printed version of the Bible in Manx, though there's even some variation there, of course. Well, through a series of unfortunate events, John Kelly's work didn't get published until much later, which was fortunate, as he appears to have been prone to create words, perhaps to fill gaps, by making a Manx version, often of an Irish word, and his attempts at etymology are frequently rather fanciful. Archibald Cregeen, on the other hand, seems to have been far more down to earth, and though perhaps he too didn't always get it right, his dictionary is far more reliable. some Irish music from the Donegal band Altan, who were very welcome visitors to Unchruniach a year or two ago. So, Altan, some music from Ireland. Stasiwn yn asiwn dy radio fanning ys cref ysgol yr sgeiliau mach cartnish ach Claare na Gael. A sé Robert de Carslach mish Robert gyda'n Carswell.
Ever heard tell of our Bobby Bob?
De eistjach rys Claare na Gael rys siacht yn lwg gigol yr sgeiliau mach yn chyrcheert brw a craman eis rys yn edeg y radio fanning ys gich y son yn sien. De podcast gyr ag nasty yn edeg y radio fanning nis, na trwyd cered yn podcast elia, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, na Alexa. Now, after the popular discontent, sometimes riotous discontent in 1825, about Bishop George Murray's proposed potato tithe, Archibald Geuree acted as interlocutor or spokesman for the protesters in the south of the island. That was something that was going on, ran into November of 1825. Now, Geuree has an entry for November of 1825. It didn't quite go on as long as that, but the entry from that time of year in his dictionary is Spitlhin. And he says substantive masculine, supposed to have been the name of a saint, for which there are 2 days in the year, Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, 18th of May, Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, 18th of November. So that was Archibald Geuree's supposition, knowing of these 2 days, that these 2 days are called Laa'l Spitlhin. That must have been like Laa'l Ian Bastia, the day of John the Baptist, Laa'l Farik, the day of Patrick. So although he's not heard of such a saint, he's left to suppose that the 18th of November, Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, must be the winter feast day, Geuree meaning the winter, of the winter. Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree must be the winter feast day associated with a saint called Spitlhin, who also had a feast day in May, Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, so that's the Spitlin's day of the summer, it would mean. Now, it's not an unreasonable deduction, but was that supposition correct? Tamil beg lug vanish, dort hans der awe ersen gol makers an oberege. As din she de else de golges of va, as de wind purt de arrow, de beg aran rianoor ek. Soel leschen as eis de else kogere broch brouwer son de chorliges of var. Onze var, die braich je heen, lezen bwin hoyacht na hoyacht. Die reiche de hoyacht, das die gie saai. Ach eis die gennacht en sabinach, as die braich je heen, lezen bwin hoyacht na kadle hoyacht. Die reiche de oil sabin, as die kori heen de lai sanjaru. Tred a hans chit de valia, genel else sa tai, as die smunien de wel shen en acht morti, de wel go gressach, de wel courage de bwin en aru hoyacht, gin smunien goil be. Ach 3 jaar na faster begger gera, as fos na denk else, hai hans roos de yin quisharu vier bwin. Ach, rawier bwin aru be. Ach, wie een shen, de lai ons an aru, as ish na kadla. Now this, de dolia demus no de wel meer cholesh put de chol een son nog as tad de grey badger USB. Ach, tad gul ons grai as tret au Claare, te Claare MP3 as chaneli Claare corden wav, as Tommy Fagan de wel purchin in Tammy chol jam fast de Jew, de wel udsen wav, as ma so chanelad son Claare, ma so va mi a chi grei der ausjen a chi clashen riddenach as a bretin, ach chanel, sure, as Manin heen.
Irisus, magil Santan polt ni cheve heraler. Irisus, Santan grin trogel genel, aston fa Laa'l Geuree, hansa close. Irisus, Navel shin, o van in nachtui, in gaven ho mocher as a lay. Navel shin, sanami, glenama, kunstai holly, as leg shul na region, fire lay. Navel shin, Irisus, o magilja beg mai, jouwen polt, erale. Irisus, boyish liorish de grai, as gebieden e jinnen, ansen old. Irisus.
Claare Kilgallen, RBV, and the song Aren na Jinnen, and that's connected with our Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, as we shall hear, the ginnies in the barn. Or is it a song about dung beetles? I often think it's a bit strange. Navel sin son in me, Glenna Mach and Tai Holly. Fully the Velshen just an act and be tickle. Esh ren hans sairige de Valia. As renny corlesh lean ushag lesh clig vega as renny kiawe Harry. Ach, fors renny tanachten na cadla. As ren hans rai tai rish, as hugge a foglas as chow stai as haya shiseg a bingega da avrige. Voor jere trebe Gael toiach der kirige, ren else achtel duste. As tred jirie as renny cray heen, ren de clig clinkel leg dach gleishach virgintek. Henk alorie, as henk ouresorie der ouwe de vier else achtel na din, as doortie rie heen, wel me, na wel me. As gin vissek a reget de chor, wie na shadow tammeld, gauws wie so smunjen Voor jere wie smunjen, nim golde valjegus hans, as braiach Jason, wel me, na wel me. Shigget he de be vissegge. Maar so renny raigus dorse tai, ach, we foglas. Esh renny krankel an unjig, as dilly Hans, wel Elsa on. There's a manuscript entitled Superstitions, Customs and Observances Connected with the Manx Calendar, and it was compiled by an E. Kermode of Douglas in 1885. However, it wasn't published until Frank Quayle came across the manuscript, and he had a facsimile copy of the manuscript printed in 1985. Mr. Kermode writes of Cregeen's supposed St. Spitlhin, that, he says, it's very remarkable that nothing whatever seems to be known of him. His name is not to be found in the lives of the saints or martyrs or any Roman calendar that I'm aware of, which makes it probable he was either a local celebrity or that the name is a corruption of some other. So that was E. Kermode writing in 1885. A. W. Moore's 1891 book, The Folklore of the Isle of Man, also follows this idea. Under the 18th of May, which, if you remember, was Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, he refers to the feast day after a saint now unknown, and he refers to the 18th of November as the second feast of this unknown saint. Tammy just Jean Kirit Chit. This is a group called The Outside Track, and we'll have a song from them. It's going to be potluck now from as regards the music, whatever pops up, I'm afraid. So this is The Outside Track.
As I came o'er by Bonnymoor Hill, every rose grows bonny in time. I met a wee lass and they called her Nell, longing to be a sweet lover of mine. It's questions 3 I'll ask of thee. Every rose grows bonny in time. It's questions 3 you must answer me before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. You must make me a cambric shirt. Every rose grows bonny in time, without one stitch of your needlework before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. Then wash it down in yonder well. Every rose grows bonny in time, where water ne'er ran and rain never fell before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. Then dry it out on yonder thorn. Every rose grows bonny in time, where blossom ne'er bloomed since Adam was born before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. You must get me an acre of land. Every rose grows bonny in time, between the salt sea and seawater strand before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. Then plough it all with an old ram's horn. Every rose grows bonny in time, sow it all with one grain of corn before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. You must shear it with a sickle of leather, every rose, and bind it up with a peacock's feather before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. Then stook it o'er yonder sea. Every rose grows bonny in time, and bring the shell sheep dry unto me before you'll be a sweet lover of mine. When you've done and finished your work, every rose grows, You may call to me for your cambric shirt, then you'll be a sweet lover of mine.
A challenge song, rather like Scarborough Fair, the same sort of structure to it, and that was the band called The Outside Track, rather an international band. I think there's members from Ireland and Scotland in it, and also the vocal there was, I think it's Sissy Rankin that was singing, one of the Rankin family anyway, and the Rankin family are from Cape Breton in Nova Scotia, Canada. And Cape Breton, well, Nova Scotia tells you more about it, of course. It had a lot of settlers from Scotland who were part of the Highland clearances, and they went to Canada, and that was one of the areas they settled in Cape Breton. And it's a very strongly Scottish area. They still have Scottish games and so on. There's a university which teaches the Gaelic language, and it's a very strong theme through all their folklore and ethnicity, really, in Cape Breton. Very strongly Scottish. And there we had, as I say, one of the Rankins sitting on the vocals of that one with what is otherwise an international band anyway, called The Outside Track. In 1925, John Joseph Neen, usually simply known as JJ, gave a paper to the Isle of Man Natural History and Antiquarian Society, and this paper was on Manx fairs and festivals. In this he gives a different interpretation of Laa'l Spitlhin, and he writes, "The chapel of St. John the Baptist at St. John's, Kirk German, was connected in some remote way with the Hospitallers, or the Order of St. John of Jerusalem. I may say here that we have no documentary evidence to prove this, but merely the evidence of place names, and the fact that there were 2 days on the Manx calendar dedicated to hospitals, one in May and the other in November, both held at St John's. Now, whilst he says there's no documentary evidence, J.J. Neen's paper gives an historical account starting with John de Courcy, the Earl of Ulster, who was a knight of St John of Jerusalem, and he was married to Africa, the daughter of King Godred III of Man and the Isles. And in this he shows how the Hospitallers Foundation was strong in the north of Ireland, and therefore, I suppose by extension, it would have some effect here as well. Te, dwyd Hans, ta Elsa on. Esh va al na smŵr I na fyriw, as chawds fi gillach mach, och, nee, es chanel mish mi heen, hai de vraiach ag Doris Elia. Ach trech hiel en slai klinkkel na klig, ha jinnach het fosl en Doris a son, as chadodi kos na stiach on spola bi. Mar so renny raier soel chow hall jen valje beg chira, as near as a treshen, an el pech bi nagany. As mar so shen jeren skiel mechion Elsa Achtel. As te naskiel jouwer de loers voor die de bisho Heinrich Kustig achttien regiet, as tien mesich a boerd an adel as a maja. Treder au batalieron, as for 3 mekegge, as gaur. As for fame be mai by egen gaur, an older au I bege dolju les vaniek, as mar so vi na li jail schieskus na shelly a chladach, as ren na mek an overshore shell. Leider au ren an ver shinne, cor lesje gaur gus a rullik. Breton dance music played on the accordion there by Alain Peneg. No, he was a member. I've forgotten which band he was a member of. I know that he was a member of one of the leading Breton bands that play for the Festu Nos and Festu Diz. Angie B.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Sure het stasiwn yn asiwn y siendigreid y jarw dyn ei Radio Bannington. Sé Claare na Gael wys rechlaas neg yn treiton, mer yn pyn Robert y Corslach, Robert Cydyn Coswell.
Did the ever hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
Ons rolik tan y stolen share, as ons sien odder gegoor I a saai, as klistel megeert. Sy'n jaster beg, treb en treer dit de golde valje, door de mak shinne, wel megoor, wel de hayed. Dregger goor, geledden te mish, genodem nish, Fochenelje bie vlugge, bè. Is tar de valje doorten den jeg, as rennie kjane ted rieg, rennie ligeli gus a stollek, as rennie kjane on shen. Nishesh doorten shan taljer, wel a goring oile bi koeiek. O, dregger a mak tichel ledden de waddegie plugge weg elje. Ach wanneer giri fagen a hon heen, as haie mak as a stall. Rennie struge a gaur wien, as doort hij, me gaur wien, wel u ledden? As dregger a gaur, krein acht weiden ledden, gerauw en shen, fochen bi de vlugge, bè. Krijve short am I klaschen, de metallier, as rennie rai is gillier a dunjeg, she bregachos. And J.J. Neen gives this reference to the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, the Knights Hospitallers, and says that, I hope some document may yet come to light which will help to solve the problem which confronts us as to whether there was a branch in man. And he goes on, there is a place called Laa'l Spitlhin, the place of the hospital, in Peel. Now, there's a family of names associated with this: hospital, hospice, hostel, hotel. Originally, they'd have provided safe accommodation for pilgrims, and later people who were ill might stay there. Primarily, the cure was prayer, but knowledge of medicinal herbs and good old-fashioned rest and recuperation were also advantageous. However, George Broderick's view is that Laa'l Spitlhin in fact takes its name from Booley, meaning a cattle fold, and that this was on land owned by a family called Spiddle, originally from Douglas, I think. So it's possible that the hitherto quite strongly held notion of a hospice in this area at Laa'l Spitlhin may in fact, after all, be fanciful. Now this is a song from Cornwall. It's the Aggie Boys Choir.
Well, the scallops might fly
when the pigs swim by, and we're all asway on the Cornish tide.
And if the tractor's afloat,
we don't bother with our boat, and we're all aboard for this Cornish ride.
So we'll
haul away for the Cornish tide,
keep our backs up strong,
and the future in our sights, and we'll haul away for the Cornish pride,
and we'll learn from our right and wrong. In Cuckooland,
where the codling rear the lamb, and we're all asway on the Cornish tide.
We'll be fishing with our plough,
pulling spots up from the clouds,
and we're all aboard for this Cornish ride. So we'll
haul away
for
the Cornish tide,
keep our backs up strong,
and the future in our sights,
and we'll haul away
for the Cornish pride,
and we'll learn from our rights and wrong. There's a place in the town
where the guinea fowl growl,
and we're all asway
on the Cornish tide.
Oh, and the crimping machine,
well, it ain't never had a clean,
and we're all aboard for this Cornish ride. So we'll haul away
for the Cornish pride,
keep our backs up strong,
and the future in our sights,
and we'll haul away
Cornish pride,
and we'll learn from our right and wrong. Here the eggs are laid by cows,
and we throw them at the crowd,
and we're all asway
on the Cornish tide,
and we laugh at our life,
'cause we're living the sweet life,
and we're all aboard for this Cornish ride. So we'll haul away
for the Cornish pride,
keep our backs up strong,
and the future in our sights,
and we'll haul away
for the Cornish pride,
and we'll learn from our right and wrong, and we'll haul away
for the Cornish pride,
keep our backs up strong,
and the future in our sights,
and we'll haul away
for the Cornish pride,
and we'll learn from our rights and wrong.
A shanty sung by the Aggie Boys Choir, all about what was happening on board of a vessel called the Cornish Pride. Now, Mona Douglas, we heard earlier on the song from Claare Kilgallen RBV about the Jinnans, ar ein Jinnan, and Mona Douglas gives this account. Spitlhin Geuree, or winter hospitality, the duty of providing food, fire and shelter for those in need. Long ago, most farms kept a special chamber or small house for the people of the roads, the travelling beggars. Some of these houses still exist. And the turf fire was lit on their hearths and never allowed to go out again until the following May, so that the jinnies, as they were called, could always find shelter and comfort there, and could cook the food given them by the Ben Thai. And this was no cold, degrading charity. The travelling folk had their own independent pride, and although we now speak of them as beggars, actually they seldom, if ever, had to beg their requirements, for they were a recognised part of the community, carrying the newses long before newspapers reached the countryside, and lending a hand wherever they went in return for the hospitality provided. So there we are. Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, she says, is the day when those fires had to be lit in the Taina Jinnan, the Jinnies' houses, or the rooms kept for them when they went to these farms, and then that fire had to be allowed to be in, wasn't allowed to be going out again until the time when it was getting warm enough so they could do without the fire, and that would be Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, the 18th of May. So the 18th of November was an important date for Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree. For that custom, says Mona Douglas. Is that right? Didn't you break the rawa gor ledden, dilly a talier a vaccina? As the agres uri uliwan tray. As the jimusega, chroggy soos a clat taustun dartega, as jimene a vac mach as the tie lesh imodi booligen. An laer gain, henk shell and nabak, as hure inid brow and skleiagera, ball was stolen my gladron, as renagor ia dulju. Synjaster beg, und tre henk de ligele I tai door te wel magor, wel de haed. As dregger a gor, Cholen ta mish, chanodum nish, fochen elier be a flugga, be. Esh tar de valje door de dunjeg, as reneli jeli tai, as renny kjanli. Nish esh door den shaan talier, wel a goir goil a be kuiek. O, dregger a mak, ti cholen a voddachi plugga beg elje. Rauwe talier gennacht an de wei shigger, as haia mach gus a stall, as doorte, ma gaur wien, wel u len de fear. As Tommy Jean nish, as Eliam de Belschen a shul gus a vretinson a ren te Jean, as hanelby de bollach shigger kerit te show, ach shoche. And that's Welsh band Laa'l Spitlhin, second movement. And they were singing a song called Farewell Bookie Boch. And a Bookie Boch, I think, is a sort of house elf. It's a creature that helps out, does jobs around the house. And for some reason, he's saying Farewell Bookie Boch. Ach dregger a gaur, krenacht beiden len, gerauwen shen, fochen bide vlogge, bé. A rift an shen de metallier, de liege den gretor min troste. As look de rai back, renne ibert mach as a tie, a dunje egg, les je clat toust on dart. Well, the 18th of November is Laa'l Spitlhin Geuree, perhaps connected with making sure the ginnies were provided with fire during the winter months. Or is this the hospitality J.J. Neen meant, rather than the Knights Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem providing shelter in a particular place in Peel? Was Laa'l Spitlhin, in fact, the place of the hospice or the place of rest? Because there were, of course, relics probably in the cathedral on St. Patrick's Island. Pilgrims would come to see these relics. They would need somewhere to stay, so perhaps there was. Is that right? And if so, is the fact of winter hospitality and summer hospitality, is that all connected with that? But, of course, it's one of these things. It might be, after all, one of two feast days of an otherwise forgotten saint. Who knows? It could have been St. Spitlhin all along. Wel, de jar o coiect a fist, as yn line of a scrut as fiera, as yn ginu brunis, na curtain leschen ging, na curtain leschen grey. From 7 to 9 here on Manx Radio, you can enjoy 2 hours of the best in chill-out music with Chris Pearson. And then at 9 o'clock, Judith Lay will be here with her programme Sundown. A car nish e mish vis golda lai, looked out for Gael Radio Vanning de golda balia, nish de kion chit Claare Gael. We finish with Aidan O'Rourke, and he's playing a piece which takes two names. It gives As Force, it's called, and actually that's the two names in Gaelic for a waterfall and in Scandinavian for a waterfall, as we find in Renas and in Forsel. Of course, the Renas, the division of the waterfall in Gaelic, and Forsel, the dale of the waterfall in Scandinavian. So this is Aidan O'Rourke playing that piece. Ach Shenanish, and so until the next time, this is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Oh, Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night. Eve, I'm a Creorts, as Duts, Mairi and Share.